Let's unbox my teaser photo. I posted this on my community tab asking for guesses what's inside. There are many futuristic product guesses that I would really love to see, and there are many correct ones. Inside here is BenQ newest PD2730S. It is their Pro Designer display 27-inch 5K model that has a nano matted display, and it's going to be really fun unboxing this. So let's jump right in. I'm ArtIsRight. Full disclosure, I am BenQ Global Ambassador for their Pro Display line. BenQ have sent me this PD2730S to do an unboxing, review, long-term testing, and also tutorial videos which I'll be sharing on my channel. All the opinion about this displays are solely going to be my own. Part of the reason why you're seeing this box comes in a really nondescript package this way is because it is a pre-production unit. And while we are unboxing this, I'll show you what comes in the box, what comes to the display. We'll link this up to a Mac and we'll have some conversation about it as far as my initial thoughts. Full review will be coming later on. So with that said, while I'm unboxing this, what I like to do as well is have a brief conversation with us about the differences between the PD and SW and also the MA line, because there's a lot of question that really comes out from there. So what it all really comes down to with those different display models or the different lineup is really the creative discipline. So SW is a display that can show 99% Adobe RGB. It has hardware calibration, and if you are a photographer who prints, especially from an inkjet printer, whether it's in studio, at a lab, or in home, whatever that may be, SW is definitely going to be the display model for you. Now, this is the PD model. PD is really meant and created initially for designers, but as a designer display, this can also work for other creative disciplines. So for example, if you design for web, if you design for print, this will also work as well. It will also work for CAD/CAM work, animation. It will work for many disciplines beyond what you really think about, and it will also work for video workflow too. So if you do a lot of video editing, or even if you're a photographer but you don't print per se, or you don't have an inkjet printer at home, this can be a display that works well in that regards too. Right. Let the box drop. So yeah, this is the PD display model, and then there's one more. There's a newly announced BenQ MA model, which is pretty much the Mac line displays, seeing Mac colors and all those things. It's really cool, but there's a big difference between the PD and the MA series. Now, the PD display line, interestingly enough, can also show the Mac color. It has the M-Book color mode so that it works better with Mac and everything. But the difference is that the PD is really more fine-tuned and calibrated from the factory for creative workflow, meaning that not only is just the M-Book color mode, which is the color mode designed to match Mac displays, calibrated from the factory, but there are other color modes too. For example, P3 Display P3 color mode, DCI P3 color mode, sRGB, all these color modes are pre-calibrated from the factory, whereas on the MA line, BenQ just spent a lot of time calibrating the M-Book color mode, and that's pretty much about it. And now we'll have an opening, like unboxing of like the MA display series just to show you too. But essentially, the whole thought about this is if you do any design or creative workflow for revenue, you are much better off getting one of the PDs or SW display. So that's the main difference. MA, really more for consumers, not calibrated in many different modes. PD, calibrated much better, has the accurate color technology behind it in terms of uniformity and everything. And if you really want to get to the top of the line, then the SW is going to sit at the very top of the heap. All right, so now let's open this up. So there's always pull tabs. A couple things about this display is that is CalMan verified, Pantone validated. When we open it up, a couple things that we do get from here, as usual, the individual calibration report. This pretty much tells you how the display is performing. This is a PD line, so it only comes to one chart. But the average delta E for this display, this particular one that I have, is 0.2255. That's extremely low. Anything below 2 is considered good, and BenQ does guarantee that. However, anytime you get something below 1, you can't really see a difference anymore, and this is really awesome. So beyond that, we get a couple of things. This is really designed much better than the previous generation. This is where all the cables are in this box. So what do we get? We get the power cord, we get a Thunderbolt connection. So this is a Thunderbolt 4 cable. We get an HDMI to HDMI, and we also get this one, which is a USB Type A to a USB Type-C. This is a USB 3.1 Gen 1, and I appreciate the fact that they wrap the cables a little differently. It's more environmentally friendly now. They don't use the plastic bags anymore, and DisplayPort to DisplayPort cable. So if you want to use this with PC, it works just fine. If you want to use it with Mac, it also works equally as well. There's a quick guide. So this is pretty much the quick start guide, and let's open this up. I wish I have a pull tab for this guide that makes it a little bit easier to open. So we're gonna see what's inside. We have the Color Talk Display Pilot, which is pretty much what you are seeing right now. We have the LCD monitor quick start guide, a couple of regulatory paperwork, and safety instructions. So we'll set this to the side. This is pretty much the base. Now, if they could change this into something that's not kind of like this plastic foam material, that would be really awesome. And take a look at this. This is actually really cool. I'm gonna push this back a little bit. But this is the base, and this is a special edition that has my signature carved into it. Hopefully, I don't know if you can see it on the camera or not, but I'll bring it up to this one. You can see that there is my signature there. I'll get a close-up of this later on, but this is actually really cool. So these are the pre-production ambassador unit that they sent out that has the base that's carved out. But here's the case though. I think like if they could just engrave, would you guys want it? Like, let me know in the comments so that anybody from BenQ can see if you want like a custom engraved PD display. I think that would be really cool. All right, let's continue on. Some foam, more tape, less paper, improvement. So this is pretty much the cable harness on the back of the display. The other thing what we get is a hotkey puck Gen 3, which is very similar to the new SW272 series, both the U and the Q. In a plastic bag, this is a wireless hotkey puck. It is lighter in color, designed specifically to match with the new industrial design for the PD series. Going below this layer, this just all comes up, and I don't think there's anything else in this layer anymore. So this is the display. So we have the display itself, and we also have the stand. So I see that a lot of packaging now is really paper, more environmentally friendly. They're printing the packaging itself using environmentally friendly ink. So they're doing a lot of really great things. I just like to see more of it, where if they could eliminate these foams and just make it like a kind of like a paper wrapping biodegradable things, that would be really awesome. But anyway, this is the back of it. Design view is now like a circle, like a big circle as you see here. And this will mount to the back of the display. But what I'm going to do first is this. We're going to mount the stand to this. So just pretty much insert it like so. And you can just use your hand like this just to screw it in. And hand tight is fine. You don't need to use like a screwdriver or anything. Just like that. It's pretty much in place. This is fairly sturdy. And what it's telling you to do right now is to pretty much lift this up and pretty much break it apart like so, because there's a seam. And this is pretty much going to be the best way for you to unbox and link your display up. So the next thing what you want to do is from the box, what you want to do is insert this in like so. Snap it in place, and now you can pull the display out of the box without really damaging it or without really handling the display. So they did thought about the box design a little bit more, which I do like. So we're going to put this here for the time being. I'm going to put the box back together, and then we're going to reset the studio. We're going to plug this in, and I'll give you my initial thoughts about this PD2730S and also some specs about this too. So we'll be back really soon. One more thing that I'd like to share with you about the box, that I wish there was a handle, but there's no handle on this, so you got to lift it. But on the side, there's these perforations for you to lift the display up from either side, and this is really neat. The only thing that you need to note is that when you do this, sometimes it gets in the way, so you might want to actually push this thing in just to pull the perforation tab out if you have any problem trying to pull the content out of the box. Although they designed this a lot better, I don't think you're going to have a problem with that, but just a little FYI there. All right, so now during the setup process, it's probably a good idea to use the quick start guide because it tells you a little bit more things about this particular display. And something that I didn't really think about is to assemble this part before I assemble the base of the display. So what I'm gonna do right now is simply put the display down like so on the table. And we need to disassemble this in order for us to put the cable harness in. And just like that, we have the cable harness. So a few things about this display is that it has a new industrial design. You can see that it's all white. It's designed to match a little bit better with Mac, the way how they designed it. So it's a lot more, I would say, spherical and like really much more smoother lines. We do get more of these whites, and we also have the cable connection that are just pretty much right at the back now, the way how it is. So you're not going to see those cable connection kind of on the bottom or needing any cover from like the previous generation models. There's a Kingston lock right there, and right below on the very bottom of the display, there are a couple of controls that I'm going to show and do that in the full review. But what I'm going to do now is let's plug this in. And let's link this up to my Mac using the included Thunderbolt 4 cable. So this is the one that they have included with the display. And because this is using Thunderbolt 4 technology for the display, what you also get is the ability to run DisplayPort or to run display daisy chaining with this too. So you can link another 4K display to this one. And this is a model that also has what they call the nano matted panel. So this is pretty much very similar to the SW272U, 272Q, and also the 242Q, which has like an extremely matted panel. It looks like a matted sheet of paper. It's actually really cool. In fact, one of the things is that when you take a look at this matted panel, the way how BenQ have done the matted panel on these displays is very different than the way how Apple have done it. Apple have done a etching on the glass. BenQ have done a coating on the panel itself, which is also the reason why you see this little stickers here saying that it is normal for your monitor to almost have that like film layer on top. So do not tear. So what they are telling you is not to pull that layer out from the display. Beyond just pulling out the sticker, there's nothing else that you have to do to display. There's nothing cover it in the front. You don't have to pull anything apart. It's just pretty much what it is. So that film layer that they have in front right there, it's almost like this coating that you do see on the display. On the very top, it says AccuColor and the display model number. Otherwise, it's very clean design. BenQ is embossed inside the display right there, but you know, there's no clear logos that you can really see. Now, interestingly enough, in these hotkey puck, I believe what they have done is a little bit different this time around compared to the SW. Okay, so this requires 2 AAA batteries, and it is not included in the package. Very strange here. I thought they would have included that. And the other thing too that I noticed the difference between this and the newer SW series is that the SW also includes a screen cleaning cable that's not, or a screen cleaning cloth that's not included in this one too. So something interesting to note there. I have this display linked up to my 16-inch MacBook Pro via the included Thunderbolt 4 cable. Provided that your computer is capable of outputting to multiple displays, and I would definitely check the spec for your computer beforehand, you can technically plug in another cable to this display and have another 5K or 4K display running side by side using just one singular connection. Now, this Thunderbolt connectivity is also providing power to my laptop too, making it very simple. However, if this is the first time that you are setting this display up and when you plug it in, you're getting no signal, there's a couple of things to note. As I mentioned before, all the connections for this display is on the back, but on the very bottom of it, there are 3 USB Type-C Thunderbolt connections right here. You have to plug in the right one, and the correct one is the middle one. That's going to be for the primary computer. On the very bottom, it says KVM1. On the top, you will see a Thunderbolt and a computer symbol. You want to plug it into that one. If you plug it into any other ports, it's not really going to work. The most outer port that says KVM2 and it has a USB Type-C connection. This is why BenQ included the USB Type-C to USB Type-A cable. This acts as the uplink for the KVM. It doesn't do anything else, so don't try to plug in a display there. And if you want to daisy chain a display to this PD2730S, you want to use the most inner Thunderbolt connection right there, and this is going to output the signal to the other display. So now that we know that, we shouldn't run into any issues where we're not getting the signal on the display. So as I mentioned, this is a 5K display, so the resolution is 5120 by 2880, and if you're linking this up to a Mac, it's going to run at scale resolution regardless, because Apple does the same thing with their 27-inch Studio display. This also happens to have a pixels per inch pitch of 218, so you're going to get really much sharper and crisper graphics from here, and also text, because now we're more than quadrupling the number of pixels needed for the type of scaling that we do. And this is also BenQ very first PD that they have incorporated the nano matte coating to here, which looks like a matte sheet of paper. I really like the coating on the display, and I think it's really great. Aside from this, the magnets of this display is 400. We get a color gamut coverage of 98% P3, 100% Rec 709, 100% sRGB. Now, the other thing is the unofficial specs of this display, and you're not going to see this when you go through the display menu. For instance, under color mode, for instance, you're not going to see Adobe RGB, but my understanding is this panel can show 90+% Adobe RGB. Now, I'm going to include that information in the full review and give you some more thoughts about how the panel is really aligning into custom mode. But if we can do that, this would be a really great contender for anyone who wants Adobe RGB coverage on a 5K panel that's a pro display right now. Now, in addition to all of this, as I already mentioned, this is BenQ PD series. So it's part of the AccuColor line. It's using a lot of AccuColor technology. Uniformity and everything is supposed to be that much better on this one. It supports HDR10. It's also VESA HDR or Display HDR 400 compatible on this one. The refresh rate is 60 Hz. You're not really going to get that much more out of a 5K display at this point because we are dealing with a lot of bandwidth issues. And in addition to having Thunderbolt 4 connection, it also has HDMI 2.1 and DisplayPort 1.4 link up to this display too. So you can connect this up to multiple different sources if you choose to do that. Now, there are notable differences between this and Apple Studio Display, just kind of from the ground up right now, is that BenQ guarantees that you're going to get a display that has a delta E of less than 2. I already told you that this display is 0.2, which is really awesome, directly from the factory. And you're also getting the other thing, which is a 2000:1 contrast ratio. This is unlike the normal IPS that we have seen that has 1000:1. So chances are they're probably using some IPS black technology or something like that on this panel in addition to everything else. We also got the verification, as I mentioned when I unboxing this display. We got the CalMan Verify, we have the Pantone Validated, although I don't believe this is Pantone Skin Tone Validated, but I will double check in my full review for that. Now, you can also do a full software calibration on this. If you want to use a third-party software such as Calibrate, you can certainly do that. I have plenty of guides on this channel. However, BenQ have also incorporated Palette Master Ultimate so that it will talk directly with the display and you can do a calibration with that too. Now, what I'd like to do is just kind of show you a side-by-side here in terms of like the color, and what I'm going to do is just minimize the glare a little bit on my 16-inch MacBook Pro. We can see that the colors come fairly close to each other. This right out of the box default to Display P3 color gamut. However, I can go into the menu and let's see if we change the color gamut a little bit to MBook. And how would that look? So MBook's a little bit brighter. I would say like MBook is just like a touch closer to where my 16-inch MacBook Pro is. And you can kind of see how like the blues and everything are fine-tuning a little bit closer to each other. But I would say that regardless of even if you use the default P3 right out of the box or MBook color mode, if you want something to match closely with your Mac display, this is definitely looking really close to each other, even as I'm seeing here. Now, the variations, especially when looking from the side like this, is I see a lot of glare on my Mac. The other thing too, because this happens to be the glossy one, and I do have a nano texture one. I didn't brought it out to put it in this video, but you can see that the colors are going to look a little bit more saturated on here compared to what you're seeing on here because of the nano matte coating. This is something that's very similar in the nano texture display from Apple II, and I made a video about that. I'll put it in the description so you can check that out and see some of the thoughts and see some of my process in terms of just doing a comparison so you can see that. Anyway, this has been the PD2730S unboxing. I think that we have waited long enough for BenQ to give us something like this, and finally that we have it. I'll be testing this. I'll be doing a review of this soon. And granted, we don't have the infinity, edge on all four sides. I mean, there's still like a little small bezel on the bottom, and I wish like the bezel was a little bit smaller around the edges. This is still a move, I would say, in the right direction for BenQ, that now they're really starting to really answers a lot of requests that us Mac users have been asking for, which is a 5K display. And now that we have it, I think this is a good start to that. Anyway, leave any questions or comments and anything that you want me to specifically test in the comment section. Give this a like, subscribe, and hit the bell review. Art, and I thank you for your time.